Okay, in the previous video then we saw that the derivative of the inverse sine of x is 1 over square root of 1 minus x squared. And the good thing about the derivatives of these inverse trigonometric functions is, as I say, I call them 2 for the price of 1. The cofunctions for the cosine inverse of x, its derivative is just the opposite of the sine inverse of x. So it is negative 1 over the square root of 1 minus x squared. And from here we're going to use we're going to go ahead and find the derivatives of the other functions. Okay, so next we'll go to the function y is equal to the inverse tangent of x. And again, when we're using an inverse function, instead of giving it an angle and getting a tangent back, we're giving it the tangent and getting the angle back. So in this case, x is a tangent that we're giving, and we're getting back an angle, which is y. And so what this says then is that y is the angle whose tangent is x, or x is equal to the tangent of y. And so we go back to not using the inverse function, but the original function, and we rewrite that in terms of x is equal to the tangent of y. Then we're going to take the derivative of both sides with respect to x. And this procedure is the same for all of these. We're always going to do this. We're going to first rewrite the function, then we're going to take the derivative of both sides with respect to x and differentiate implicitly, and we get a 1. We get that 1 is equal to the secant square of y times y prime. When we solve for y prime, we get that y prime is equal to 1 over the secant square of y. And after we solve for y prime in these, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to make a triangle so that we can get rid of the y and convert that back to x's. So if you recall from the original statement, we get that y is the angle whose tangent is x. So we write that y is the angle there, and the tangent is the opposite over the adjacent. And if the tangent is x, that means that the opposite is x, and the adjacent is 1. Then using the Pythagorean theorem, we would get that the hypotenuse is the square root of 1 plus x squared. And now we're ready to convert. Well, we need the secant of y. And the secant is 1 over the cosine. If cosine is adjacent over, is the if the cosine is the adjacent over the hypotenuse, then the secant is the hypotenuse over the adjacent. So the secant of y is the square root of 1 plus x squared. And so what we want now, though, is we want the secant of y squared, and then that would just be 1 plus x squared. So in the end, y prime, or the derivative of tangent inverse of x with respect to x, is 1 over 1 plus x squared. And its inverse, or its cofunction, sorry, that is the derivative of cotan inverse of x, would just be negative 1 over 1 plus x squared. And so now we have 4 of the 6. The secant and the cosecant are a little bit more difficult, have a little twist to them. The cosecant is going to be just the opposite, obviously, of the secant. So we'll get to that one in the next video. So we have 4 of our 6 inverse trigonometric functions defined as well.